want to focus more and more on the teardown market, okay, and the secondary part market because of the margins. I'll just give you a quick thing about that. So if you're distributing OEM new parts, you might be getting 10 to 15% gross margin. Where if you do teardown or secondary used parts that you bought off a plane, we're usually seeing margins anywhere from like 60 to 80%. Okay. So it's a huge difference. But you have to fund the planes to tear them down. And that's not easy to do. Most banks will not do that lightly because you're taking you can buy planes all you want, but they don't like the idea of you tearing down their collateral. So that's where the challenge is. And it's a huge challenge in this industry. Okay. It's a very big challenge. So Troy, who's done, I don't know, probably through the new company, we've done close to now 7 teardowns. We did a couple of joint ventures, but we didn't really love the idea of helping a competitor out in the joint venture process. So to give Troy credit, he's like, why don't we start a 506c fund? I think we can do this. It's a great way to bring in retail investors. And so we did. So we started a 506c fund that basically helps, to your point, buy the planes, brings the capital in so they can purchase the planes. And then we have our sister distribution company sell it through to all our customers. So basically the fund is just the capital sourcing, and what you invest in is basically capital sourcing. All the work is being done by what we call aircraft parts distribution, or APD. It does all the work. And basically what happens, they sell parts, and on a monthly basis, they give us our money. And then technically we have it on a quarterly basis, but the reality is because it's pro rata distributions and everyone wants their money back quick, usually once we get the money in on a month, we send it out to investors. So we've now done 2 teardowns as part of the fund. The first one, the Challenger 300s, I'm pretty good. We've returned about 60% to investors so far. We kicked that off in August. We just bought Bombardier Global Express, and we finally got approval from the DOJ. It was a little long process because of the government plane. But we got approval in February, and we started that teardown process now. That actually seems to be a very high demand plane. So going forward in the future, we're doing a raise, and we've actually started to do it 2 ways. As we're talking with Jeff, we've allowed a plane-by-plane investment, especially for retail. And so basically what happens is you invest in a plane, you get your money back usually on a minimum quarterly basis, but like I said, normally it's monthly or wherever we get the cash in. And then you get the cash, and you're allowed to then reinvest in the next planes. It usually a certain amount of each plane to previous investors, so you can roll over your investment. We also are starting to launch, and Jeff knows about this, a general fund, which will probably happen in Q2, which is going to have a continual enrollment. It's going to be a group of investors, and that's going to be continuously taking most of that capital that's coming back and reinvesting it into new planes and cross the planes, not just on a discrete investment.
When you say 60 to 80% margin, is that accounting for all the parts that you're not going to be able to sell?
Yeah.
And all of the, there are all kinds of holding costs and everything. Is that accounting for everything, or is that just the margin on top of what you paid for that part?
No, we account for everything. I mean, to give you an example, like our Challenger 300, we tell people the cost is about $1.9 million for that plane, but we only bought for 1.5. We had about $400,000 in teardown, shipping costs, transportation. And we know going into it, we are not going to sell all the parts in the plane. And Troy can talk a bit about that. So what we normally see is a 5-year runway of you're selling parts for those 5 years, the high demand parts. And then the parts don't necessarily go bad, but you have a bunch of slow moving parts in the end. So we actually have the fund set up that as long as investors have gotten their money along the way, at the end of 5 years, we basically scrap and auction everything out.
You started it like 2.5 years ago, right? Something like that. Mm-hmm. About how much have you sold from the used planes, and how much have you spent on used planes and teardown?
They all get paid for under 12 months. Some of them quicker, depends on which ones they are. Like, for example, I bought a Challenger 604 from the FAA. I paid $980,000 all in. I sold the wheels, brakes, and landing gear for $1.1 million, and so I was whole on it right away. Like right now, we have this Global Express that Dan's mentioned. We'll have 3.8 to 4 million in it, but that return will be back within, I think, if I could sell the landing gear at the same time, the whole thing will be paid off within 4 to 5 months.
I got a question for you.
Okay.
If I could get really good at raising money for you to buy airplanes, I
Yep.
mean, could you theoretically buy an airplane every month or two every month, or is there some sort of like if could you scale this up kind of a lot or
I can. I can. It's very important to me to make sure that I'm not
getting a good
rushing
return?
things for you. I'm more concerned about you guys than me because I have no worries on my end, but it's
Yeah.
the promise that we gave the return back. And so let's just say, for example, if we bought four of the same airplane, that first airplane, we're going to get a return back a lot quicker than the second, third, and fourth. So everybody just
Yeah.
has to understand because now you got more of the same part. So you need to burn. So if you get two of something off an airplane, you need to sell those two. Then you're going to have a little bit of timing before the next two sell.
Yeah,
So
I get that. So
yeah,
there's diminishing returns if you get bigger.
Well, and
well,
Mark,
if I do the same airplanes at the same time, now if I scatter those airplanes out every 6 months, then no, we're fine.
Yeah. And if you get diversification of airplanes.
well, to
Yes,
give you an example on that too, like we like the Global Express, okay, and so we've been staging out Global Express purchases. What, Troy? Every 6 to 9 months, kind of roughly.
yes, yes.
And those have consistently returned. I mean, all of them returned over 3.8 million to $6 million. Okay. Um, and to answer your question, Mark, like most of our major teardowns we've done so far, we've done about 16 million in revenue on roughly 10 million in cost. And that's with a lot of those more planes being purchased more recently too. I mean, none of these planes are over 3 years. Most of them are not over a year and a half old to 2 years. So that's why Troy, I mean, he's seen good expansion when he's already made basically $6 million of actual cash off of these. You're always looking for new planes to purchase. There's always good value in that marketplace. So we're always turning that cash.